Hello everyone, today we will discuss the regional language and universality of architecture in the context of Kenneth Frampton's Critical Regionalism and Hassan Fathy's Architecture for the Poor books. Regionalism is the reflection of local culture, climate, materials, and traditions in architecture. For example, the use of adobe in desert regions, wood in Scandinavian architecture, and natural cooling provided by wind towers in the Middle East can be seen as example of climate-appropriate design. Geoffrey Bawa's tropical modernism developed in Sri Lanka. Hassan Fathy's works based on traditional Egyptian architecture. And Kenneth Frampton's theory of critical regionalism are also examples of this. On the other hand, universality in architectural design focuses on global principles that transcend culture and geographical boundaries, standardization, and functionality. It uses modern construction techniques and materials such as glass, steel, and concrete. Modernism is influenced by movements like the international style and adopts a minimalist and functional design approach. It offers standardized architectural solutions. Examples include Le Corbusier's Villa Savoye and Chandigarh Sea, as modern structures as well as similar glass-closed skyscrapers seen in global cities. The balance between regionalism and universality remains an important debate in contemporary architecture. According to Frampton, the concept of critical regionalism is a geographical approach that aims to balance global modernism with local, cultural, and geographical conditions and is examined under 6 main principles. The first principle is the balance between cultural identity and modernity. There should be a connection between local traditions and contemporary techniques. According to this principle, architecture should neither remain entirely bound to traditions nor surrender to the uniformity of culturally globalized modernism. An example of this is Balkrishna Dashi's Sangat building. Avant-garde, in its pursuit of universal modernism, often disregards local cultural identities, whereas Frampton's principle of critical regionalism aims to balance culture and modernity.
To Frampton, for architecture to continue in a critical manner, an arrière-garde position that avoids both the optimization of technology and historicism that can lead to regression should be adopted. Regionalism itself opposes universalization and supports cultural features, while critical regionalism is an architectural approach that critiques modernism without being overly fixated on tradition. Critical regionalism modernizes local culture throughout analysis rather than imitation, whereas populist architecture tends to adopt more superficial stance that the public really accepts. Many architects have expressed their views in opposition to the homogenization of modernism. The Boxford Church serves as a beautiful example of critical regionalism, referencing various cultures, such as Asian, Islamic, and Scandinavian, in its architectural approach. The concept of resistance of the landform, which aims to bridge modernist universalism and local attitudes, symbolizes the sensitivity of architecture to the conditions of the region where it is located. Fortman critiques Jean Gottman's approach to the megapolis while agreeing with Hannah Arendt's concern for the sense of common space. He also supports Robert Venturi's opposition to uniformity by criticizing superficial understandings.
According to Frampton, critical regionalism differs from the abstract and formal aspects of modern avant-garde architecture because it includes a direct relationship with nature. In this context, when constructing a building, we can say that the region's history and culture should be directly reflected in the building's form and realization. Topography and climate are important here. For example, instead of flattening an uneven terrain with a bulldozer, designing the structure according to the stepped form of the land adds meaning to the space. Besides topography and climate, the most important principle of architectural autonomy is tectonics. Stanford Anderson explains tectonics with these words: tectonics doesn't only mean necessary construction, but also the activity that transforms construction into an art form. Critical regionalism also aims to focus on the tactile experience. According to Frampton, design should include both visual and other sensory experiences, at the same time allowing the body to perceive the environment not only through vision but also through different senses offers a strategy to resist the dominance of technology.
Hassan Fathy's book Architecture for the Poor, an experiment in rural Egypt, shows how to balance tradition and modernity in his architecture. Fathy did not see modernization as copying Western styles. Instead, he wanted to create buildings that fit the needs of local people and the natural environment. He combined traditional building techniques with modern engineering ideas. One of the most important parts of Fathy's work is the use of mud bricks. Modern materials like cement and steel were too expensive and not good for the hot climate, but mud bricks were cheap, strong, and kept houses cool.
Fathy also used Nubian walls and old building technique to make strong and beautiful roofs. This method was easy to learn, so local people could build their own houses without expectations, tools, or materials. At the same time, Fathy was not against modern ideas. He used modern engineering to make his buildings better. For example, he studied air movement to improve natural cooling inside houses. This helped keep rooms cool without using electricity for air conditioning. His designs were both traditional and modern because they used old techniques in smart, scientific ways. Fathy also taught that modernity wasn't just about technology, but also about helping society.
He believed that poor people in villages should also be part of modernization. That is why he taught them how to build their own homes. This idea made modernization more fair and helpful for everyone, not just for rich people in big cities. In conclusion, Hassan Fathy's architecture is a mix of tradition and modernity. He used traditional materials and designs but improved them with modern knowledge. His buildings were cheap, sustainable, and good for society. His work shows that modernization is not only about new materials but also about improving people's lives in a smart and fair way.
Are both regional and universal approaches reflected in contemporary architecture. In contemporary architecture, both regional and universal approaches manifest in projects that blend local culture and traditions with modern design principles. Christopher Alexander argues that designers should develop solutions that are sensitive to local contexts while embracing global principles. Similarly, Hassan Fathy's Architecture for the Poor highlights the importance of designs that integrate traditional knowledge with modern architectural principles. Regional architecture aims to develop designs that are responsive to geographical, climatic, and cultural factors. This is reflected in the use of local materials, climate-adaptive solutions, and elements that represent cultural identity. For instance, Fathy utilized local materials such as mud brick and traditional dome and vault systems in rural Egypt to construct affordable housing. These methods provide natural cooling in hot climates, reducing energy demands. On the other hand, universal architectural approaches adapt global design principles to create solutions applicable across different geographies. Smart building technologies, energy-efficient materials, and modular construction methods are among the common universal elements in contemporary architecture. The minimalist and flexible spatial approach, sustainability-focused designs, and projects addressing social issues are also part of the global aesthetic understanding.
Ultimately, Architecture for the Poor successfully integrates local building techniques with contemporary sustainability and social architecture principles, making an impact on both regional and universal scales. Today, these two approaches coexist in architecture through projects that prioritize sustainability, respect cultural heritage, and adopt technological advancements. Kenneth Frampton, through the concept of critical regionalism, advocates for an architectural approach that is both sensitive to regional contexts and critically embraces universal disciplines. Instead of completely rejecting modern technology and construction systems,
he proposed adapting them critically within the local context. A notable example of this approach is Alvarento's Finlandia Hall. Anto integrates universal modernism into the local context by using natural materials and organic forms suited to Finlandia's climatic conditions expressed through a modernist language. In the design of the building, local materials such as wood and soft, flowing forms are harmonized with modernist aesthetic, creating architecture that is both culturally and environmentally responsive. Aalto's approach demonstrates that modernism into not a singular, uniform style, but rather one that can diversify by integrating local elements.
According to Frampton, critical regionalism considers architecture not merely as a formal language, but also as a spatial experience in harmony with the topography and climate of a place. He believes that architecture should also be evaluated in terms of users' experience and its relationships with the environment. Works such as Tadoandos, which merge Japan's traditional spatial organization with concrete and light play, creating a modern language that respects the spirit of the place, align with Frampton's perspective. In conclusion, Frampton does not advocate for purely modern universalism or a nostalgic emphasis on locality. Instead, he promotes an architectural approach that utilizes modern technology in accordance with the essence of the local contents, producing contemporary solutions while maintaining a distinct identity. Thus, in contemporary architecture, regional and universal approaches can coexist through cultural references, materials, and construction techniques, climate-sensitive design, and emotional experiences. Today, especially in terms of sustainability and the preservation of local identity, the approach of critical regionalism remains highly significant. Therefore, Frampton's ideas continue to serve as a crucial guide in shaping the future of modern architecture. So today we talked about 3 questions and 2 topics, and thank you for listening to us.